Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into something really transforming business, auditing artificial intelligence.
hmm
AI, well, it's not science fiction anymore, is it? It's becoming the real nuts and bolts of how companies work.
Absolutely. And that's why this is so important for you, our listeners, as AI spreads, across basically all industries, understanding how it's being checked, how we ensure it's reliable and used properly, that's going to be key to just staying informed.
Exactly. So to get a handle on this, we've been digging into a white paper simply titled Auditing Artificial Intelligence. It's really quite good, looking at the challenges IT auditors are facing with AI.
And crucially, how they might use something like the COBT 2019 framework to tackle those challenges.
Right. So our mission today is to pull out the core ideas from this paper.
Yeah.
We want to look at, well, what is AI? What are the roadblocks for auditors? And what are the proposed solutions using these existing frameworks?
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
Okay. First things first, defining AI. It seems obvious, maybe, but the paper points out it's actually not that simple. There are multiple definitions floating around.
That's right. ISACA, the authors, they acknowledge it's evolving fast, so they're flexible. But they do point to a pretty standard definition from Russell and Norvig.
Well, what's that?
They talk about AI as the study of intelligent agents, basically systems that can, perceive their environment.
Sense what's going on around them.
Exactly, and then act to maximize their chances of achieving whatever their goal is.
Okay, so it's goal-directed action based on perception.
No.
Got it. Now, the paper also helps place AI relative to, say, machine learning and just regular old software. How do those fit together?
Yeah, that's helpful. Think of AI as the big umbrella concept.
Yeah.
Machines doing tasks intelligently using algorithms.
Mhm.
Machine learning is then a subset of AI. The key thing there is that the machines learn from data. They adapt their own algorithms as they go.
Ah, so they're not just following pre-programmed instructions.
Right. Which is the big difference from traditional software. Traditional software runs on fixed rules. If X, then Y.
Predetermined logic.
Precisely. AI, especially ML, can kind of figure out the relationship between X and Y from experience and adjust its own rules. But the paper also flags that even within IT and auditing, there's no single, universally agreed upon definition of AI.
And that lack of agreement causes problems later, I imagine.
It certainly creates challenges when you're trying to build consistent auditing practices, yeah.
Makes sense. Hard to audit something everyone defines slightly differently. So why the big push for auditing AI now? Is it really expanding that fast?
Oh, yeah. The numbers are pretty staggering. The paper quotes Tractica Research. They projected the AI software market would go from, US $3.2 billion in 2016
Okay.
to an expected US $89.9 billion by 2025.
Wow. That is a huge leap, almost 90 billion.
It's massive growth, and when something grows that fast and gets embedded so deeply into how businesses run, you absolutely need auditors to step in.
To provide that assurance, that confidence.
Exactly. Confidence that it's being implemented right, used responsibly. It's about trust and, accountability.
Okay, so AI's here, it's booming, auditors need to be on it. But the paper highlights some pretty significant challenges. What are the main hurdles they're running into?
Well, one of the biggest is simply the lack of specific frameworks and regulations for AI auditing.
Right, unlike other areas of IT where there are established standards.
Exactly. We don't have mature frameworks detailing AI sub-processes or specific AI rules auditors can just point to. The paper mentions CRISP-DM for data mining.
That rings a bell.
Yeah, an early attempt at a cross-industry process. But generally, there's just not much widely adopted precedent specifically for auditing AI in practice.
So auditors are kind of making it up as they go along. Or adapting, maybe.
More adapting, hopefully,
Yeah.
but it's definitely navigating newer territory. And that connects to the other issue we just touched on, defining AI and its scope.
Because the definition is fuzzy.
Right. And because AI systems vary so much, using all sorts of complex tech, it's hard to pin down exactly what constitutes AI within a specific business.
If the business itself isn't sure where AI starts and stops.
How can an auditor confidently define the scope of their audit? It creates uncertainty right from the start.
Okay, and the paper talks about the black box effect.
Yeah.
That's always the big scary thing you hear about AI.
It is a common concern, definitely. That feeling that with machine learning especially, you can't always see the step-by-step logic for why it made a certain decision.
Right.
But the paper makes a really crucial distinction here. It argues that traditional IT auditors, well, their main job isn't actually to audit the complex math inside the algorithm itself.
Oh, so what is their job then?
It's more about auditing the governance around the AI, the controls, the processes, how it's managed, how it integrates with other systems, that kind of thing.
Okay, so they're looking at the framework surrounding the AI, not necessarily dissecting the code line by line.
Precisely. Now, a basic understanding of algorithms is helpful, no doubt, but the super deep dives into the models, that should probably be handled by specialists, data scientists, model validators.
Well, it's not like auditors need a PhD in machine learning overnight.
Definitely not. And the paper points out there's existing guidance auditors can draw on, like the US OCC regulations for model risk management in finance. They're used to dealing with complex models already.
That's reassuring. The paper also busts a myth, right,
Mhm.
about the lack of research.
Yeah, it pushes back on the idea that there's no research. There's actually quite a lot of academic work on AI,
Right.
but it's often very technical, very academic, and maybe not directly aimed at the practical needs of a typical IT auditor doing their day-to-day job. The info's there, but not always easily digestible or applicable.
Got it. So knowledge translation is maybe the issue. What about challenges coming from the organizations themselves?
A big one is the lack of a clear, enterprise-wide AI strategy in many places.
Companies are just experimenting, maybe,
Mhm.
without a grand plan.
Sometimes, yeah. Or they haven't really documented how AI ties into specific business goals or how they'll measure if it's actually delivering value.
And that makes it hard for auditors because,
How do you audit something if you don't know what it's supposed to be achieving? What are the benchmarks? What are the success criteria? It's like auditing a project without knowing the objectives.
trying to hit a moving target. Or maybe a target that hasn't even been painted yet.
Exactly. And this lack of strategy then makes it tough to apply frameworks like COBIT 2019 effectively. The paper mentions the difficulty of cascading COBIT,
Cascading,
meaning applying it from the top-level strategic goals down to the nitty-gritty operational level. If those top-level AI goals aren't clearly defined by the business, it's hard for the auditor to connect the framework down to the specific AI activities.
right, you need that clear line of sight from strategy to execution. And is AI something companies usually build in-house, or are they getting outside help?
Very often they're getting outside help. AI is complex, data scientists are still in high demand and expensive.
So outsourcing makes sense.
It often does, but it creates another challenge for auditors. Third-party risk and what the paper calls dispersed understanding.
Meaning the knowledge about the AI gets spread out.
Yeah, split between the company and maybe multiple vendors. No single place holds all the information, which makes getting a complete picture for an audit much harder. More complexity, more risk.
Okay, so it definitely sounds like auditors have their work cut out for them. But the paper doesn't just list problems, right? It offers solutions.
Mhm.
What are the key takeaways there?
Absolutely. A really important message is don't wait for perfect AI-specific frameworks. Adopt and adapt what we already have.
Use the existing toolkit.
Exactly. COBIT 2019 is highlighted as a really strong starting point. It provides tools across all sorts of IT domains that are relevant for AI assurance.
And it's not just frameworks, but regulations too.
Yes, things like HIPAA for health data, fair lending rules, GDPR for privacy. Depending on the AI's application, these existing laws provide crucial guardrails and legal context.
So leverage what's already established. What else?
Auditors need to get informed about AI design and architecture, not become data scientists, remember?
Right, governance focus.
But they need a broad understanding of the pieces involved, the programming, the data side, the ML tools, algorithms, cloud infrastructure, all that stuff.
To understand the landscape they're auditing.
Yes, and to define the audit scope appropriately. It also means recognizing that AI projects often need diverse skills. Data scientists, engineers, specific programming language experts. Auditing might need to be more multidisciplinary, too.
Makes sense. You can't audit it effectively if you don't understand the basic moving parts,
And that leads to the next point. Involve all the stakeholders.
not just the IT department.
Definitely not. AI touches engineering, security, business leaders, legal, compliance, and often those external third parties we mentioned, like cloud providers. Auditors need to think about cloud implications, vendor lock-in, where the data actually lives, who knows what.
It takes a village to manage AI, and it takes a village to audit it, seems like.
Pretty much, and communication is absolutely vital here.
Because it's new and maybe poorly understood internally.
Exactly. Stakeholders might be wary or just confused. Auditors need to be proactive, explain complex stuff simply, address concerns, and really tailor their communication. It's partly an education role.
Building trust through clear explanation.
Yes. And that ties into transparency, another key theme. Given AI's complexity, aiming for transparency is crucial.
How do auditors promote that?
By emphasizing the need for clear documentation throughout the AI lifecycle design, testing, changes, monitoring, the paper notes algorithm tuning is iterative, so documenting that process is key. It even hints AI itself might become an auditing tool eventually.
Interesting. Using AI to audit AI.
Potentially. But the main point is continuous improvement and explicit documentation help make things less opaque.
And reminding ourselves again, the auditor's main focus should be.
Controls and governance. Not the deep math of the algorithm, but the structures around it. Are the controls effective? Is the governance working? That's where IT auditors add the most value.
Okay, that provides a much clearer picture of the auditor's role. Now let's get practical. How does COBIT 2019 actually help here? The paper gives specifics.
It does. COBIT 2019 serves as that foundational framework. It helps auditors structure their approach, defining the scope, identifying risks specific to the organization's AI initiatives.
Like a starting template.
Kind of, yeah. The papers suggest using it to build a risk and control matrix in RCM, systematically mapping potential AI risks to the controls that should mitigate them.
Okay, and what kind of AI-related risks can COBIT help address?
The paper gives examples related to strategy, like the risk of IT plans not aligning with business needs, which is critical for AI, or having inconsistent plans across different parts of the company.
Silos causing problems.
Right. Or the risk that high-level strategy doesn't get translated properly into actionable tactical plans for AI implementation. And importantly, the risk of ineffective governance not having clear roles and responsibilities for AI oversight.
All sounds very familiar from general IT governance just applied to AI.
Exactly. And Figure 1 in the paper lists a whole bunch of relevant COBIT 2019 objectives. It's quite comprehensive.
Yeah, I saw that. EDM, APO, MEA, DSS, BAI covers the whole life cycle.
It really does. From setting the overall governance framework, EDM-01, to managing strategy, APO-02, risk, data, monitoring, MEA, operations, DSS, and projects, BAI, it shows AI isn't isolated, it touches everything.
So COBIT provides that broad coverage. But the paper drills down into one specific practice, right? DSS-06.
Yes, DSS-06 is Managed Business Process Controls, and specifically, they focus on DSS-06.05, ensure traceability and accountability for information events.
Traceability and accountability. Why is that one so key for AI?
Well, think back to the black box problem. If you want to trust an AI's decision or investigate when something goes wrong, you need to be able to trace why it made that decision.
To follow the logic, or at least the data trail.
Precisely. DSS 06.05 is about making sure you can trace business information back to its origin and know who or what system was accountable. For AI, this means ensuring the audit trails give you enough info to understand the rationale behind its actions. It builds that necessary trust and allows for investigation.
So it's about making the AI's thinking, or at least its process, visible.
As visible as possible, yes. Figure 2 in the paper digs into DSS 06.05, explaining how this traceability helps ensure reliability. It even gives example metrics auditors could use.
Like what?
Things like a number of times you can't recover the history of a transaction or the percentage of transaction logs that are actually complete and traceable. Very practical measures.
Yeah, those are concrete things you can actually check. And what activities does COBIT say are needed for this traceability?
Figure 2 lists them. Capturing the source info and supporting evidence, defining how long to keep it, based on business needs, legal rules, and then making sure you dispose of records properly according to policy. Figure 3 shows the inputs and outputs too.
So auditors would examine how source data is grabbed, the retention policies for AI data, are they being followed? And the paper suggests a key audit question.
Yeah, basically asking, does the AI's decision seem appropriate given the inputs and the context? It pushes the audit beyond just technical checks.
Looking at the reasonableness of the output.
Exactly. Evaluating the work products, the retention rules, the actual transaction records, and asking if it all makes sense for the specific use case. It really grounds the audit in the business reality.
Okay, that COBIT example really helps illustrate how existing frameworks can be applied. It's not about reinventing the wheel entirely.
Not at all. It's about smart adaptation.
So let's try and wrap this up. Key takeaways from our deep dive. AI is booming. Auditing it is crucial, but challenging due to its novelty and lack of specific standards.
Right. Challenges like defining scope, the black box, lack of strategy, third-party risks.
But the solutions involve leveraging what we have, like COBIT 2019 focusing on governance and controls, auditors getting informed about AI basics involving everyone, and communicating clearly.
Couldn't have said it better. And COBIT helps provide that structure, helping define scope, risks, and specific practices like ensuring traceability, which is vital for AI trust.
Which brings it back to everyone listening. As AI becomes more embedded in everything, understanding these audit principles is, well, pretty important for grasping how organizations are trying to ensure these powerful tools are used accountably.
It really is.
Okay.
And maybe that leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. Given AI's potential reach, its impact on society, what role do you think transparency and robust auditing need to play in guiding its responsible development?
Yeah, what questions does this raise for you about AI's future and how we make sure there's proper oversight? Something definitely worth mulling over.